I would use a gavel and do all that other stuff, but this is no longer a,
Sorry we missed the last one. We've been out of the country. We just got back like an hour ago.
Oh, wow.
welcome home.
Yeah, I'm glad to be home.
Welcome to, America.
That's right, we've been in South America.
Oh, all right, very good. Well, we're gonna get started. This is a community meeting to help people gardening. My name's Scott McVeigh. Dennis?
Dennis, Posehn, Robert Wharton.
Paul Kelly, General Manager.
Caitlin's filming this, so it'll be out for people to watch. And we have two guest speakers tonight.
Oh, good.
Can I have your names, please?
I'm Greg Rutherford, this is my wife Sue.
And whereabouts do you guys live out here?
16950, we live next to the girls. So, Gwen and Char.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Scott.
I'm gonna start off, you may not be aware of it, we started last year a farmer's market. And so if you grow things and wanna sell things, if you grow, make, or produce any product out here, you're welcome to be a vendor at the farmer's market. It is on the second and fourth Saturdays of the month, on the lot right next to Bonnie's Burgers. You just got home, I don't know if you paid your water bill. But there is a flyer in the bill about the farmer's market, okay, nice color one and whatnot. We just had a meeting about the farmer's market, kind of wrapping up, it starts May 10th. We're gonna run with it again this year. There is a small fee for each vendor because we have to pay for a porta potty, some signage, you know, a few odds and ends here and there. All right? And I think that covers it enough.
Mr. Chair, real quick.
You don't have to call me Mr. Chair, this is a community meeting.
I know, but, one reason why it is because Logan Johnson, our, other board member, who helped coordinate.
Who is the
here
chair of the Ag Committee.
And the chair of this committee, he was in a panic on, Thursday. He said, my wife reminded me that today is our anniversary.
Yep, so he
So
arranged all
I
this,
told him,
and then,
stay home, take care of your wife. We will take care of the meeting.
and at the regular board meeting next Wednesday, he will be kidded about it.
But I just wanted to acknowledge that he was helpful in getting you.
Young married guy hasn't quite learned yet.
All right, back to
Anything
you.
else? Back to me?
I'd like to
Real quick,
thank you for being here. There are many people that are interested, but we're not fully organized. We don't have a nonprofit or profit. When we do things, it'll be a lot thicker. I live across the street, I grow, so I'm gonna get more or less a personal consultation from you. And I really appreciate Dennis here is big and always studying them and trying to get that going. And Scott's a farmer in all those zones, so, and these people farm. So it's not a big audience, but it's an appreciative audience, and that's all I have to say.
and again, it's being put out, the video, so hopefully it reaches a number of other people. With that, I'm gonna turn the time over to you guys to go ahead and start.
Okay.
Will there be pauses in case we have
Yeah,
questions?
sure. Anytime. Question anytime. Yeah, anytime. So my name is Teresa McCausland. I'm a retiree from Shasta County, Health and Social Services, and I've been a master gardener for about 18 months. So, and this is Cassie Leal.
Yep,
She's the director
Director of Research at Shasta College, and I just finished master gardening training and been growing a vegetable garden, kitchen garden for many years.
Wow, awesome.
I think we've been longtime home gardeners.
Right.
Yeah, so what our goal is today is to make sure that we give you some basic gardening tips and share with you what we know. And Logan and Paul put together a really nice packet of all the documents that we felt were important for this talk. So, new to gardening is basically something that it has many benefits, and that is creating nutrient-rich, homegrown produce. And it helps motivate you to be outside, not sitting on that couch all the time. So it's hard work. But it also gets you out there to do physical activity. Contributes to the environmental sustainability and creates opportunities to engage in educational experiences. One of the things that Master Gardener does is provide a lot of workshops, especially during the spring. We're going to be having our third workshop on April 26th from 11 until 2, I believe. And they talk about all kinds of gardening practices. And so it's $5, but it's worth going to. It's out at the Shasta College. I did bring a flyer for that in case anybody wanted to take a quick picture of it. So the opportunity to engage in educational events and that kind of thing, we are always at our City of Reading's Farmers Market. We're there on Saturdays. We have an informational booth. And then at most of the events throughout the county, for instance, Earth Day and Shasta Fairgrounds having an event coming up, and then we're always having an informational booth. And sometimes we give out seeds or we give out plants, and we're there for any kind of questions that you may have regarding integrated pest management or something's going on with the plant identification. We're there to help you with that. What we'd like to do is help you with thriving and sustainable gardening. So what I'm going to do now is keeping it manageable. That's one of the tips that we have for you. Especially if you're just starting. It sounds like there's a lot of experienced gardeners and farmers in the room today, but for those that are watching this on the internet, we want to make sure that you understand that. You want to start out, if you're going to start out as a beginner gardener, you want to not overwhelm yourself. And so there's a lot of ways that you can garden. You can garden in raised beds, you can use containers. I actually used milk crates and lined them with black plastic trash can liners, and put holes at the bottom, and I am growing potatoes, onions, and I had a fail on the cauliflower. Didn't do very well, but I did try. A lot of gardening is an experiment.
Yeah.
Hit or miss, especially when weather changes and that kind of thing. So you want to be able to be confident in growing your garden, so you can use various types of containers, and you can even use grow bags to grow vegetables. And one of the things that I wanted to add to this is vertical planting is really a great way to expand your capacity to grow things, because if you don't have the plot or the large garden or yard, then growing up sometimes is another better way. You can do exfoliates and that kind of thing, grow apples on fences, and it's amazing what you can do. So I'm going to turn it over to Cassie.
So the next thing to be successful with gardening, especially for beginners, is knowing your growing zone. So we have experienced growers in the room, but just remembering that we are zone 9B. We don't want to be buying fruit trees, perennials that aren't going to thrive in our zone, because we're kind of just setting ourselves up for failure. Recognizing that we have an average of 600 chill hours, which is also important in determining which fruit tree varieties or blueberry varieties we can grow successfully in our zone. I suggest using Google to identify your first and last cross dates. That's important for your planting, especially for annual planting. And I put that in Anderson and Reading's first and last cross date for this year is April 15th. That will be our last one, and then our first one is November 7th. We enjoy a very long growing season in our area, which lets us grow a couple of rounds of things like tomatoes and things. So that's really nice. And a little bit of a note about what our climate is here. I do recommend that in your packet you'll have a calendar. So you have the Shasta College or the Shasta County Master Gardeners calendar for when to plant things. Yeah, it's that blue and yellow grid right there. Yeah. So it kind of gives you an idea of when to start seeds inside or when to plant directly outside. when to transplant. There's another calendar in there as well, and then if you wanted to get more specific on like your exact location, because we do have things like microclimates. I noticed driving in, you've got a lot of hills and valleys in this area. So if you're at the bottom of a valley, your microclimate might be slightly different than somebody who's on the south side of the hill, right?
Right.
So you can kind of drill down into the microclimate of your address by going to that Almanac website right there to get the specific start dates for growing.
Okay, next topic is site selection. And that's kind of, it's really important to know, what's south facing. It took me a while because I didn't know exactly where south was, but all that stuff, so I had to really figure that out on my property. And I have probably about 6 or 7 different microclimates on a very small lot. I live in Upper Reading, and it's just amazing. I have shade, I have full sun, I have hills and dales, so it's quite challenging. But you want to choose the locations for your plants, and the best way to do that, especially when you're, either starting seeds or directly sowing, and look at the plant tags. When you're buying plants, look at the plant tags because it tells you exactly what sun exposure you need. And just remember, and I've been told this by a nursery person, full sun is not necessarily extreme sun.
Yes.
In Reading, we get extreme sun. So if we're gonna be over 100 degrees, you need shade cloth to cover some of the plants that are in full sun. So, so you wanna observe throughout the day where the sunlight comes in, what location on your property is conducive to the plants that you're putting in the ground. Infrastructure is really important, like your fences and your house and trees. You want to be able to see when you're observing your property how that's affecting the shade, because it's a lot cooler under a tree, so you can plant plants that can tolerate less sun. But knowing the number of hours that plant requires is a good thing to know, and that will help you guide yourself into where the best place is to put that plant. The other thing is, like if you're doing a kitchen garden, you're gonna have herbs and fruit and vegetables. You wanna be able to be really close to a water source, so you can tie into that water source for watering your plants, either automatically or, by hand. So that's really important to know that when you're irrigating your plants and that kind of thing, you don't want to plant something that's like a half a block away from your kitchen from a water source, because how are you going to get water to it? But that's how the best gardens are actually, visiting that garden every day. I do my morning walkabout. A lot of you people talk about going through your garden with a cup of coffee in the morning, and that's how they get through the days in their gardens. So that's really important. Okay. Oh, I'm still next. Container gardening. So I believe that when you're gardening, not just for produce, but you should have some flowering plants that could be beneficial for pollination, not only for the aesthetic beauty of them, but a lot of plants like marigolds have a lot of important factors that keep a lot of bad pests away from your produce. So keep that in mind when you're planting, and then also know that a lot of people like the ornamental flowers and that kind of thing, but they're important because your pollinators, your bees and your butterflies and all those kinds of things will pollinate your fruit and vegetables. So that's really important.
Just as a quick additive to the marigold situation, marigolds are really good for chickens, so they can actually eat them and it makes their yolks brighter and actually more richer and more nutritious.
That's
just
a
as
good
a dual
point.
purpose.
Even a lot of flowering plants are edible.
Yeah.
Pansies and that kind of thing. One of the things about container gardening that I wanted to say is if you're doing an ornamental container gardening, which we all like to have pretties, throughout the spring we like those pretty flowers and throughout the different seasons. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, And, one of the things that they always talk about is the thriller, the filler, and the spiller. So when you're doing a really pretty ornamental, flower type arrangement in a pot, that's kind of the go-to, motto that you should go with. And it's, you know, of course you can vary that a little bit, but it's always nice to have something in the center that's your thriller, and then a filler is filling in the container, and then a spiller is something that will go outside of it. And I'm very much into container gardening. I've been doing it, ornamental container gardening, for years, so, okay.
All right, so soil preparation, this is the important part. You'll wanna make sure that you test your composition and drainage in your handouts. You've got a couple of, you got one for a jar test, that you put a sample of soil and shake it up with some soap, and then measure your layers to assess clay and, sand distributions. There's also the ball test, that you get some soil and make it like a ball of Play-Doh in your hand and test it for consistency. But you also wanna test the drainage, so that's when you dig a hole in your yard, fill it up, wait for it to drain, fill it up again to see what the drainage is, because a lot of plants don't like to have wet feet. And so if you do have an area that experiences a lot of clay, I know my current property is like that, a lot of clay, then you'll need to augment your soil in order to grow in it successfully. And that can be done even if you have really sandy soil or clay soil. The solution is the same, compost, in lots of organic matter. Mixing that in will really improve the consistency, texture of the soil that you're growing in, and also provide nutrition. You can also, send your soil off for lab testing. That's an option, or do the NPK tests at home with the little things that look like Tic Tacs. And so testing your soil every year or so. You'll want to remember that things like, I'm a big blueberry fan, so I grow 4 or 5 types of blueberries in my garden. And I have to keep checking for acidity, especially because I water with municipal water that's alkaline and tends to strip the acidity out of my soil. So I have to be cautious of that, and I test 2 or 3 times a year. Enhancing fertilization, again, the compost, adding a couple of inches of that every year will really help your fertility. Adopting no-dig principles in especially larger gardening plots where you're cutting plants that aren't diseased. So healthy plants that didn't really have any major problems, you're cutting them off at soil level and leaving the root base there and not really tilling will allow the microorganisms in your soil to establish life and provide that network, because your plants aren't really able to uptake the nutrients that they need just out of the dirt. They need those microorganisms in that soil to help feed the plants and give it what it needs. So if you can not disturb the soil layer as little as possible, that will improve your grow spaces. And then mulching, that's very important in Reading. We don't want all the water that we're putting in to evaporate, so having that nice layer of mulch, organic mulch on the top, is a big support. So like I do between 8 to 12 inches of arborist wood chip mulch in my pathways, because I want my yard space to act as a big sponge. So whatever water is falling out of the sky, I want to hold as much of it as I can for my trees later in the year. And then I use raised beds, and so I do a 3-inch layer of cut hay on the top. Just because that degrades a little faster, I don't have to worry about wood chips being incorporated with the soil and tying up nitrogen. So I just find that straw is an easier option for me in annual beds. But in perennials and pathways, I'll use wood chips. What else? Oh, you can use anything though. I know our Lamone, who's our advisor, she really likes leaf mulch. So like just taking fall's leaves around her property, shredding them up a little bit with the mower or with the weed eater, and then using that as a mulch is really good too.
Okay, irrigation options. So watering techniques. Drip irrigation systems deliver water directly to plants, plant roots, reducing waste and minimizing evaporation. Now the drip irrigation system is best for like row gardening. And then soaker hoses provide consistent moisture as well. Conservation strategies, grouping plants and then having a water source to several plants in one place is a great way of, they call it hydrozoning. And that's very efficient. Water during early morning or late evening to minimize evaporation. So those are two best times of the day to irrigate. Deep watering techniques, that's something that you can do especially for trees. Deep watering is really good for your fruit trees. And that encourages the roots to grow deeper into the soil and it's enhancing drought resistance. Aim for water penetration of several inches depending on the plant's needs, and then water in early morning to reduce evaporation and fungal.
I find that pulsing is important. So like I've got raised beds that are about hip height, and I've got about 17 inches of soil in the top layer, and then the rest is logs and wood chips because I do like a humiculture type of thing. And I find that if I run it just for 20 minutes at a time, I get a lot of runoff. But if I run it for 10 and then wait an hour, I run it for 10 more and then wait another hour, I get a lot better water penetration if I pulse. So I have a meter. Okay, my turn. Plant selection, hooray! So, grow what you love to eat. I worked with new gardeners before, and they get really excited, and they just buy a bunch of seeds of things that they've never tried before, or didn't really like when they bought it at the grocery store, and then they're a little bit disappointed when it doesn't grow well, or they didn't really like eating it, and now they're stuck with a ton of it. So make sure you're picking varieties that you know you and your family like. And then you can also take some time to experiment with new varieties. So like, I always like growing new things just to see if I can grow it. So I'm trying roselle out this for the first time this year. So that should be a fun one. And then, and then you want to, if you're running anywhere in the north or north really, I feel like we're more of a desert climate like Phoenix versus in the valley. But you definitely want to source heat resistant and slow to bolt varieties, especially for your fall plants. And then annuals versus perennials, I probably don't need to tell this room since you guys are experienced growers, but annuals are plants that you need to replant or allow to reseed every year because they finish their growth cycle within a season, versus perennials, which are long-lived plants that like our trees and blueberries, artichokes, asparagus, those things just come back on their own year after year, sometimes dying back. I find that most of our plants don't die back completely though, because then we get terribly cold. And then, identifying and managing insects, so your pests and beneficials. So you wanna just be aware that most of the insects that we encounter in our gardens are neutral. They're not gonna be destructive to our plants, they're not gonna be particularly beneficial to our area, but it's just part of the ecosystem. Most of the insects we encounter, not a problem, don't need to freak out. The ones that are gonna be a problem, sometimes roly-polies can be quite destructive, and so can pincher bugs, if they just don't have enough organic matter. If you're using thick layers of organic mulch, they'll kind of stay away from your growing plants, because they'll have plenty to eat on their own. But things like caterpillar moths and worms, those things can be very destructive to our brassicas. Aphids, of course, I've heard somebody say that those are garden lice. And they're just terrible things.
Whitefly.
Yeah, whiteflies, no, that was bad. Yeah, so being able to identify them as an adult larvae and egg stages will help us control them a little bit better. You also want to be able to identify your beneficial insects. My niece, one time she was in my garden, she started smashing eggs on the bottom of like a squash leaf that she found. She thought she was doing a good thing, but they were yellow oval-shaped eggs, and I had to tell her those were ladybug eggs, and we don't want to kill those ones, right? And I had to show her the difference between ladybug eggs and squash bug eggs, which are circular and reddish brown, right? So being able to identify them at their larvae and egg stage will make sure we're not accidentally killing the good ones. And then Integrated Pest Management is a website, hopefully you guys are aware of it. It has a lot of good information about specific pests. We included a handout they have about aphids. It's nice because it starts with the least impactful way to remedy a problem with insects, and then escalating up what you can do if you can't control the problem.
Okay, so sourcing seeds and plants. So your local suppliers would be all your nurseries, of course the big box stores, is where but you can also source your seeds from the plants that you're growing. So that's another fun thing to do and quite experimental, but it does work, and it's a cheap way to increase your production and that kind of thing by growing your own seeds. One of the things that I did bring a scanner for if you're interested in winter sowing jugs. Has anybody ever done that?
In milk jugs, put your seeds in a milk jug.
What is it?
So,
Winter sowing in milk jugs.
Oh, okay.
It's just like, it creates a greenhouse effect. So when you put your seeds in the jug and you tape them up, and then there's a whole presentation on that, and I have the scan. I can give it to you, you can share it. But it's real interesting because this was really my first year trying it, and it was very successful. There was like 1 or 2 seeds that didn't germinate, but the rest of them did. And I did flowers and vegetables.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask you, what, was it all vegetables or what? And then, what were you harvesting your seeds from to
So
do?
I had a penstemon plant, a Husker's red penstemon plant, and I took the seeds from that after they flowered and dried. And then I used those seeds to germinate in winter sowing jugs. But I did an experiment because I have a really tiny little greenhouse. And so I did a seed tray, and then I also did winter sowing. And they were both equally productive. They both worked.
When did you start your winter sowing?
October,
Really?
in the late winter.
They didn't germinate right away?
No, they
No.
stay asleep, and then as soon as they get the right conditions, they'll pop up on
Okay.
their own.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So I actually opened up most of my jugs today, so I was able to see what was producing, and I have calendula. The broccoli was a fail because they were too weak,
Yes.
and then I had alyssum and lupin was another one that I tried. So
They
You know-
always bring their own
yeah.
movements naturally.
Yeah, they'll
Yeah,
receive
I'm
it.
excited about that. I have a whole hillside that I want to fill with that.
I think milk jug sowing is most successful. I've had the most success with it with things that need cold stratification in order to
Okay,
start.
sure.
So like Rebecca, coneflower, it's hard for me to start those just inside because I don't give them enough chill hours.
Yes.
Spinach is kind of the same way too. So being able to put it in a jug, you get the automatic cold stratification. Yes.
Interesting. I just want to know, have you ever grown mushroom and asparagus?
Oh yes, I grow mushrooms.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so I did a talk on it at our last workshop session. So I do King Staphoria, so, what is it? So they're the kind that you don't need to grow inside because they're not particularly picky. If you have a pile of wood chips or wood chips in your pathways, you can put the spore in there, and they'll just grow in between your beds.
What kind of mushroom is that?
King Staphoria,
As
garden giant, so wine cap mushrooms, that's what they're called.
White cap.
the
Wine like red.
Oh,
So I was interesting we love mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
We keep buying from Costco, and I wondered if I can grow those kind
Yeah,
of mushrooms.
So wine cap mushrooms are a good option for us because they can tolerate the heat. So like oysters, shikashi, those ones are a little harder to grow in our area unless you have a really shady spot, but the wine caps will kind of just naturalize and spread through your wood chips.
So through the wood chip, so it have to be in the moisture environment?
So what I do is I put them on the north side of my raised beds, so that way they get more shade. I also put them underneath my perennials, so I have them under my artichokes and underneath my blueberry plants. And then they kind of just spread on their own. They won't come up all the time, so like I usually get them in the spring and in the fall when it's about 75 degrees outside and they have enough moisture. And I always put them in a place that already gets irrigated, so they benefit from runoff.
I see. How do I get those?
The spores. There's a few reputable companies you can do, so North Spores is one, there's a few. Field and Forest is another one. North Spore is the one that I buy from. They're on Amazon, have free delivery. Yeah, I've ordered them off Prime. It might be a little bit late now, like, cause we're getting dry. But I would definitely do it in the fall or early in the spring when we get like a nice period of rain.
You could probably do that in February, put it out.
Yeah, so I did
And
my
then if
first.
the temperature warms.
Yep, so I did my first spawning in February.
Yeah.
I spread out a bunch, and then I did some more in March. And now I only need to peel back, and I buried them deep, like 10 inches underneath my wood chips. And then I just need to peel back like 1.5 inches and I can see the mycelium
Yeah,
going through my wood chip. So they are very aggressive growers, and it breaks down like the wood chips really fast into
Yeah, it
an organic matter to help your soil. So even if you don't eat mushrooms, like I'll plant them in my food forest eventually when I build that out in the back.
So, and then how about the asparagus?
Asparagus questions in particular?
Well, I just want, you mentioned that if we,
Perennial, yep.
yeah,
So, crowns are really good. I spoke to a woman, is it Turtle Bay Nursery? They had a bunch of asparagus starts that you could buy at their plant sale this weekend. But you can start asparagus from seed, but that'll take 2 or 3 years to start producing shoots. If you want a faster return on the investment, you can do crowns. So it's like this root ball that you can buy that's kind of shaped like a halo. And you put those in the fall, and then it'll start growing. The trick with asparagus is you'll get these huge fronds in the summer, like huge, like ferny growth. Don't cut that back. Like if you cut that back too early, you'll actually kill your plant, because that's what they're using to photosynthesize and build up energy to pull up the shoots in the fall. So you don't cut back the fronds until fall, until they've already died back.
so you just let it,
You kind of just let it do its own thing. It needs a designated spot. You need to give it its own bed space. You're not going to move
what
it.
kind of climate
What kind of climate?
yeah.
It'll do well here. Yeah, it'll do all right here. Yeah, it'll probably benefit from some shade cloth, but it kind of creates its own shade because it gets huge. Lawns get like 6, 7 feet tall.
Doesn't look like dill.
They fall over.
I was gonna say, it looks kind of like
dill.
asparagus from.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really,
Yeah. And it just grows. It'll keep growing once it gets established.
And Turtle Bay's sale goes through the end of the month. So they had a public sale on Friday and Saturday. And, but for the rest of the month, you can still go there and they'll have discounted. If you're a member, so Turtle Bay Arboretum Nursery.
It's like the Sundial Bridge. It's right next to that. Right. But those are, again, those are seed starts. That'll take years to establish to make those shoots.
you might be able to check Wintour, cause I bought some asparagus.
Wintour
bulbs
might have
from
some,
Wintour.
online.
Online too, you can find good online nurseries too. But, yeah, so if I was gonna start an asparagus bed, I would start with crowns versus the seedlings, cause I'm devastated when they get eaten up and die. At least if I have a crown, I know I'm gonna get some success.
So, participating in local seed swaps is another thing, and our Shasta County Library was having, seed days where you can go in, they have a library, but I think it's going away, unfortunately. So, but, Mount Shasta, did you go to the Mount Shasta one? So Mount Shasta has, some seed swapping.
And Chico has a really big seed swapping event, so if you, and the seed swapping events are fun because those are from local growers that have had success with that variety and have saved those seeds, so they're kind of climatized to do well in our area. So if you can participate in a seed swap, that's always a good thing.
But that's all the way to Chico.
If you wanted to go to Chico, they have them in Redding, Mount Shasta,
And then, visiting your local nurseries is another way to get some seeds. And, in Chico, there's actually quite a few. About, was it 2 Saturdays ago, they had a nursery crawl where you can go to about, it's like, I have a list of those too. So there's quite a few more nurseries there than there are here in Shasta County.
and of course, you can always go online. You just wanna make sure that you're shopping for your zone and your chill hours.
And Google is your friend.
Yeah.
And so is YouTube.
Alright, okay, so keeping the garden journal, so there's lots of things that you can use for a garden journal. I was talking with some of the ladies that participate in master gardening, and she was showing me her app. So she has an app on her phone with all of her beds plotted and what she planted and when, which is great, right? But I don't really like doing the online stuff, even though my job is in research and I'm on a computer all the time. You think it'd be my thing, but it's not. So I like to keep a garden journal just on paper. And I kind of just make a sketch of my garden space and put in what I planted and when, and make observations and notes. And it's just a way to keep track of things that did well and things you know you never want to grow again.
Successes and failures.
Yep, successes and failures, right? Like
Along with, I tried these this year, but I really don't like it, so
Yep.
let's not do it again.
yeah, I tried 2 varieties of snow peas, 2 more varieties, and I was like, I don't like these as much as my original ones,
I
right?
got it.
Like, yes, they have beautiful purple flowers, but the taste isn't there, so we're not gonna grow these again.
And like the broccoli that I tried to start, and they didn't do well. So I documented that. I am actually using an app that's called Evernote, and I'm doing a garden journal in my Evernote, and you can take pictures and post those in there, and then put your dates and what you're doing. It's kind of convenient online, because we do a lot of things on our phone.
But your journal can be reminders for when to plant.
Yes.
And you can use it in the app too, like it's just whatever you're comfortable with. I like the tactile sensation of sitting on my couch watching TV and sketching out my plan, right? Like that's more fun and enjoyable for me than doing it on a grid, on a digital notebook or on my phone. So it's just, that's just the way that I like doing it and engaging in that project. And then it also, you wanna make sure you're keeping notes on rotation, right? You don't wanna keep planting tomatoes in the same bed year after year, so that can, make you prone to nematodes and things. So doing crop rotation is important. And then tracking your progress. So keeping track of like maybe we had a bad problem with grasshoppers a couple of years ago in Fulton Reading. So just keeping track of those weird anomalies that come up.
Okay, utilizing local resources, community engagement. So, your Master Gardener program, which fortunately in Shasta County, we have a pretty good program going on.
They're active.
And so engaging in in those groups, and then also going on to online communities. There's a lot of garden groups that are online on Facebook and that kind of thing, and you can share. Sometimes people are saying, well, I have this going on, what is that? And they'll post a picture of it, and then they'll get comments as to what that might be. So it's kind of a nice way to interact with the other people that are gardening in the community. Local seed libraries, we talked about already, and then, of course, our Master Gardener workshops.
And our contact information is on the front of the handout.
Yes.
Alright, and then, other tips. So, as you guys are all really advanced growers, so maybe these can apply to you a little bit more than a beginner gardener. So it's really important that we protect and cultivate our soil. So healthy plants will come from healthy, maintained soil. So we wanna incorporate no-dig principles, to increase the biodiversity in our soil, to make sure that micronutrients are available to our plants when we're growing them. And that's accomplished by healthy plants that have just finished their season, you're cutting them off at soil level and leaving the root base in place. So that's what that was. Humiculture techniques is another one that I really like to use, especially in raised beds or tall containers. So you're gonna use arborist wood chips at the base to establish a base layer, and then put your growing medium on the top. That just, after a while, those wood chips and those decayed logs will become sponges and hold water for your plants. And break down slowly and provide nutrition to the plants in the soil. So humiculture is a great thing. It's a German technique they used to do mounding, like growing on mounds. And then grow up, use trellises and other structures to take advantage of vertical space. I'm a huge vertical gardener. I grow everything vertically that I can. Even my squash grow vertically. I get less squash bugs if I grow them like palm trees on a pole. Yeah. And incorporate permaculture principles, so mixing in your crops. So not just growing a whole bed of tomato plants, but mixing in things like basil and chives and some flowers, maybe some marigolds or nasturtiums. Help bring in that biodiversity, especially incorporating herbs and things will help deter pests, kind of masks things. Okay. Any other tips?
Oh, no, I think you got it covered. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Back to your squash trees. What kind of, product are you using to train them? I mean,
Yeah, so I actually use just a stake. So I've seen people use T-posts, because I don't garden in the ground. People who garden in the ground, I've seen them use T-posts, and then just use that green gardening ribbon to tie them up as they grow, and you're just pruning the leaves off, and only leaving the top leaves. And it'll get taller than me. Yeah, and then I use just green gardening sticks, the steel ones, or I've used rebarb before.
Yeah, sure, yeah. You can grow them in amongst corn too, and trade up corn.
You can buy them with corn too. The only squash that I like, I'm growing one type of squash that's also a winter squash, and I'm growing that over an arch trellis. So that'll be a little bit bigger, but all my other
grow a
squash.
Hubbard like that though.
All my other squash is grown on a stake. Yeah.
our soil out here is red, silty clay with loam. I did the jar test, it's very little loam, but it seems to drain remarkably well.
So that's good.
We had this horrible rain and it just piled up, and then 24 hours later, most of it was gone.
Yeah.
And then later, another rain, and it took a little longer because there's still some water there, but not, it's really surprising it drains well.
Yeah.
At the place across the street, I did a test crop of grain sorghum and pearl millet, and they did really well. I just planted them too late.
Mm-hmm.
And then I murdered my sunflowers. I didn't know they needed nowhere near the water the other day. So I watered them like crazy, and the fungus attacked and
Yeah.
killed them.
Yeah.
So I know better now, but there are labs in town, commercial labs, I think, too, that test soil. Does the university outreach program that is off Hartnell somewhere, do they test soil for free, or will they?
I think most labs will have a fee attached to them.
What?
I think most labs will have a fee attached to them.
Okay,
Yeah.
Try to do.
Yeah, they'll charge you.
okay, but would that be also the university extension out there?
I think they do soil testing, yeah.
Okay,
There are kits you can buy.
Yeah, there's kids you can buy too.
Other places like
What's
that.
the best, what is, the best, store or company to, test your soil?
We're not supposed to back anybody.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've never really paid for soil testing myself. I'll do my at-home testing and do the little tic-tac things, but I'm bringing in a bunch of soil to grow it into. But, make sure you're mulching, because that also helps. My backyard doesn't drain at all, the water just sits there. But doing a thick layer of arborist wood chips helps a lot, yeah.
Couple of things I thought maybe could be brought up. Out here, we need to, protect our plants from larger pests, deer, rabbits,
Oh, yes, the fencing, yeah.
quail.
Yeah.
See, I try to do seed starts in my raised bed.
Mm-hmm.
I like, put in a whole bunch of leaves. They come along, they peck them out, don't like them, but they pull them out of the ground.
But you have raised beds? How big are your raised beds? Like
4x8s,
Yeah.
I got 16 of them.
Do you know ladder mesh? So you get it out of the masonry department out of
Oh,
big
I have
box
some.
stores? I use
I
that.
lay 2x4s across the top and then put the mesh over the top.
Yep.
Until they've gotten up big enough.
So I do that too, because the jays.
Flower seed starts too,
Yeah.
zinnias and others.
So that's a good strategy if you're
Yeah.
having pests
For the
like
quail.
that. Yeah, for like crows and jays and rabbits.
Yeah,
Using hoop houses for that, yeah.
Right.
But the deers, that was a hard one. I know alone, so it's
Right.
got needed like 10-foot fence.
And I have a 10-foot fence.
Yeah.
We had a 4-foot one, and they just
Hop
jumped over
over
that.
Even the
So we
babies
extended
don't
it.
want those.
They came and went up,
Yeah.
you briefly mentioned one thing that would be good for people out here too, that's your moisture meters.
Moisture
Okay,
meters.
and I know the district at one time did acquire some through a grant or something for trying to, minimize the use of water by customers. And we were able to give them out, but those are really helpful.
Yeah, those are.
And then you briefly mentioned also composting. If you work a compost pile, right now mine's about 12 foot in diameter and about 18 inch, well, actually, I put some new stuff on. But it's so big, it's a lot of work to turn over.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I can fill up 4
And
or
you
8 beds, but I reinvigorate my beds all the time.
Yeah.
I
don't
also
know
grow
those plants.
onions or leeks or different things, garlic in the beds,
Mhm.
and then put something else in there.
Yeah.
Marigold's good in amongst some of your flowers too, because it will help keep some pests away.
Especially the French marigolds. Those are the
Yes.
ones with the enzymes to keep away nematodes and things.
Right.
City
Oh,
of
that's-
Reading also has, free compost, but
Who
it's.
does?
City of Reading.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can pick it up.
But it has to be, you have to put the, bio, what is it called?
Yeah, but
Uh,
that's
Because it's
something
sterile.
It's sterile, they really sterilize it. So
Could
have
you
to
mix
put
it with your
nutrients
own
back
compost
in.
then?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I
But
have
it's
volunteer pumpkins coming every year in my compost pile, and they are massive.
The Reading, they just fill up this bin next to the baseball park with compost. So if you go online, what's this?
we can look it up.
Is it
But
by
it
Big
is
League?
the,
Is it the one by Big League?
yeah, it's like a big bin, you just go in your truck and fill up
It
crates.
should be tarmac. I think
Yes,
is-
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's correct.
What is it?
City of Reading. On Tarmac?
Yeah,
It's like Tarmac and Viking Way, it's
I
like
think so,
the
yeah.
intersection.
But you've got so much around your own property, you can compost all your grass clippings. Right now,
I have
my
Bermuda grass.
milkweed's in bloom, and I cut that stuff down, I compost it too. I bring it up. And.
I haven't attempted composting yet. That's gonna be my next goal.
But you can buy small composters too, drums and whatnot,
Yes,
if you want.
they're expensive.
They are
Yeah, you can make
Check
that.
Amazon, see what's out, what options.
I thought that was the easy way, just push a button and
Are you talking about the ones on?
Oh, I was thinking about the electric ones that they advertise.
They have those in the kitchen, but, no.
Well, we've been pretty successful with coffee grinds as well.
Oh, yes.
As a
Those are
soil
good.
amendment to try to get more better drainage, so.
And our program is also, doing, worm.
Compost. Oh, yeah, vermicompost. I like keeping worm bins in my raised beds.
My compost
So I
pile is
do
full
that
of
too.
them.
Yeah.
Just sits there.
Yes, sir.
Been there for years.
Right at the beginning, you mentioned, a workshop, April 26th.
Yeah,
Yes.
April 26th.
And what information, I mean, I could maybe put
I
that
have
on,
that, let's see.
but how would?
It's at the Shasta College farm, and it's the afternoon this time. She'll have the specific times.
Yeah.
And the Shasta College farm, once you go onto the main campus, it's in the back, and they usually have sandwich boards on it that say
Oh, yeah.
plant workshop, garden workshop.
Okay.
Don't they have a
So it's on
sale
April
on this week?
26th,
Friday and Saturday is the big sale at Shasta College.
That's this Friday and Saturday,
Yes.
the big plant sale, yeah.
Well, Robert, I know where you're gonna be.
Well, one of the baristas at the coffee shop, I think, is in the agricultural program.
Yeah.
She's gonna tell me about some stuff there, she was in there.
So is there a name of?
Wait, time out, I need, what time?
it is on the 26th.
Yeah.
And, it is from 11 to, she doesn't have it on here.
Well, I have a copy of the flyer.
All right, while you're looking,
We'll get that to you.
I got it right now.
okay. I don't know, I just thought I'd put it on our website, on the ag.
Well, I can text it to you if you like.
All right.
And what time is the sale on this weekend, Friday? and
9
Saturday?
to 4.
9 to
4, both Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
Any questions for them?
You wanna text it in?
Is that Shasta College?
Shasta College Farm.
Shasta College.
Or even any questions related to what you're trying to do?
Besides growing new mushrooms.
We already have pretty much everything already set.
The wine cap mushrooms are a good option for us. They're
Yeah.
outside, they don't need a sterile environment, they cohabitate really well.
Yeah, I do too.
Yep.
Send on that guy?
Mine are all, I make my own
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we have our own compost.
2x8s with wire on the bottom, to keep the mold and the gophers out. I compost too.
Well, we have the landscape fabric underneath, so I don't know.
And then they're having.
I do a wire.
I'm the
So
tall
that
order.
they can't come up through.
So, Mr.
Yes, sir, over there.
Chair, I have a stack of things here that I can't resist mentioning because in the back of this nice, beautiful building here is what we call a dungeon, and it's been a storage room, and we went through and finally cleaned out hundreds of boxes of old invoices for paying for repairs on our vehicles from 1993. But we found this box, and it has all these interesting books, like How Does Your Garden Grow?
Oh, wow.
Or a book that, look at that cover, I don't even know, this might be a first edition. It's actually written, it says Happy Anniversary, April 12th, 1946. And it's 1,000 garden questions. And then we got house plants and cacti and succulents by Anthony Huxley. We have garden plans. These are old Sunset books. So if anybody has any interest in these, I think what we're gonna
A
do,
little library out there.
we're gonna put them in this library.
A little book exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Garden ties.
And, you know,
like tinctures?
Perennials.
Yeah. You
Those
would go
sunset
About
magazines,
roses.
so expensive for those sunset magazines.
I know,
Like, even now, they're
kind
a
of
fortune.
souring the
so
soil.
this thing has a sticker on it that
Is that on
says
the-
$6.95.
And mind you, that's probably an eighties book,
Yeah,
eighties
I
to
have a couple of
nineties.
books.
Maybe, yeah.
Kinda
I think
cool, huh?
garden recipes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's not good to look at.
And I can show you the spawn.
I use some of them.
So I've got,
Garden cheese, manure cheese,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and mixtures of like sometimes some vinegar, some days.
Homemade remedies.
Homemade.
this was one of them.
All homemade. Try to avoid it.
Just of course.
And I do some of that.
You have that one?
I do have a big place where you get a bunch of it and you have to shovel it yourself.
Is it?
It's loose, it's not in
Gone,
there.
so.
Yeah, that's an old one, Brenda, a long time ago,
Yeah.
but that guy, Jack,
Speaking of
every
trees,
single
I put in
thing.
about 18 church leaders every year.
And still,
I donate them to.
It's still active.
But I use the same mix, but I grow leeks or garlic or keep it.
Like this.
I think so.
Because I have to reinvigorate every year.
Yeah.
I pull out half the
Cost.
soil, I go to my.
I was gonna say $20 books. My mom would buy those and she has them to this day. Yeah.
So we think somebody had donated them to the,
The hay, and I
The
can
district?
let it
and,
break
you
down.
know, so when we were disposing of things and getting shredded, we were to give it all the stuff.
I do some leaf.
I don't remember who it was, says, hey, Paul, come look at this box. I can't even move the box.
The one thing we grow here successfully in our soil.
Take it.
That's why I do raise eggs.
I like raising, I can't do it with my back. Like, I don't like putting down like that.
Well, you know what I've done with some of mine? Cement block.
Oh, yeah.
And you do 2 or 3 layers up, and now all of a sudden, you're planting at this height.
Yeah.
And, or you're gardening at this height, way
So I just,
high.
I use bird's nest.
And I put a capstone on it, and I can see the age across.
Oh, good job, yeah. Yeah.
I have a couple of those, and then some of my others, I switched from wood
Can I just have this?
to the block with just one layer with a capstone. You know,
Get
it's
a sheet,
easier to control.
guys, we put that together and then you put.
I always put a heavy gauge wire,
I
Yeah,
metal
it's
net,
just-
half inch, so it's not an inch underneath.
a month.
I do like raising.
I get molds occasionally.
You get some flyers from some.
I got about
That's
18
fine. What I'll
varieties.
do is,
Plus I grow
so
a
I'll say
whole
print it
lot of
for
different
people.
flowers.
It's posted on our website, that whole
You
packet.
know, what like
Combine all the
dahlias, I have like
PDFs.
80 some.
Put your name and I don't ever get the information to one way or the
And
other.
I
People can get
got
that
this
information,
different
and I'll just add
varieties.
Guys, read for
I
that
just
too,
added
for the
that.
guys, it's their problem.
Well, thank you so much for being.
I haven't had as much success with my raspberries as I have with the library. I have them on my, like, put a
Oh,
fence
okay.
for them, I grow and try on the fence. Especially the thorns.
You bet.
But I'll get 30 to 35.
Oh, no.
I make jams out of them, I turn it fruit smoothies in the summer.
I like
You just have to know how to put it, like, how to bag, train it, or whatnot.
Well, it's nice talking to everybody. Thank you for having us.
Oh, I appreciate you guys coming.
More people.